We're live, so anytime.
Oh, okay. Guess I could start early then. Call the meeting to order. Please rise to We always start our meetings. We now open it to comments from the public. And 13. I know you're on the agenda. Board members have received in their board packet your communication on your concern. But please go ahead.
Okay, I will, I did take pictures of the area to the extent that's helpful. I just wanted to, as you know, you have a copy of what I wrote to the mayor in your packet. And I was hoping that that particular area of town might be a little bit easier to think about in terms of the snow removal in that area, because there's no sidewalk across from us and there is village property right next to it. It has been a real challenge to try and keep the sidewalk free as the plow goes by and continues to put snow down on that sidewalk. So we sometimes do it 4 or 5 times in just one day. So I wondered if there might be a way to look at it a little differently. Not that we want any special treatment, but I'm hoping that our particular area of the world might lend itself to creating a solution. I leave it in your capable hands and will accept any decision that you come to. And thank you for taking the time. I'm really busy to consider.
No problem. It will be referred to our streets, which is chaired by Cindy Falk, and I know she's already been alerted to it. So there'll be discussion as to what might be possible.
Okay.
Well, she's here. Does anyone have any questions for Virginia? I guess not.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all that you do.
Moving on, we're going to open the public hearing for the closeout of the Community Development Block Grant, which was for Cooperstown Distillery Project. You all have that legal notice in your packet. It is noted that it will, they'll have until November 1st to submit any comments if people want. So in discussion with Terry, we thought we would open this and leave it open until our next board meeting to close it, but that will sort of meet the requirements. I see Jody is here. If do any board members have any questions for Jody on the distillery project or on that committee?
Just generally, can you tell us how you view the project having proceeded and how you measure its success?
Yeah, I'll read off my last report to the state. Obviously, the construction of the additional building is complete, and all the contractors have been paid in full. All equipment has been installed. I believe there's still some minor landscaping work to be done, that we won't be able to do because of COVID-19. The entire amount of the community development block grants, for the activities, have all been drawn down. The only remaining funds to be drawn down are the administrative and program, expenses that, Carrie and I will be working on to finish that up. The total expenditures for the project are $718,000, well above the $430,000 that the original estimates were. So we more than made up the required match with funds. As of June, 6 new employees have been hired, one above the original intent of 5. And 4 of those hires are considered low and moderate income, which is not low income people, but people who do not need a college degree to work with. So in all, the state's very pleased with it. We're holding out ahead of schedule. And actually, the state has asked me 3 times when they're going to have a grand opening, if you want to send some representatives.
So we asked just one follow-up. Can you explain the $782,000 in matching and what, how the money came?
Yeah, normally, a community development block grant is $15,000 per job being created with a maximum of 40% of the total project cost. So for $100,000, they have to have at least $400,000 of expenditures. They actually expended $700,000, so they're well above their match.
That is the company.
Not us, the
Yeah,
company.
that's what I was trying to get at. Thank you.
Any other questions? Richard?
We're off the hook for everything at this point, right?
We
had a list of, I think, about $100,000, didn't we, initially?
We did, yeah, it's just, we're almost, shall I say, the pass-through, this type of grant.
I know, but I'm saying, we did have a small risk, but it's all done. Is that correct?
I don't remember that we had.
You didn't
They had to
have a
hire.
risk because the company gave a guarantee that if anything went wrong, that they would pay the money
I
back.
don't think we were at risk for anything.
Okay, thank you. Just saying, if something went wrong, if they didn't pay the money back, we had a risk, that's taken care of this.
Yeah, with the guarantee
We
and
put a guarantee
everything,
in.
and
That's fine.
yes.
Cindy?
Jody, are there any remaining reporting requirements? Do those jobs need to be maintained for a certain number of years? Basically, when this closes out, is it closed out, or are there continuing obligations for the business?
What I have to do, I have to submit a final report, which is the same as this report, because nothing's changed. And they actually have to come down and do a monitoring inspection, which means they have to I'll be bringing all of my files over to the village. And they will go through, when they schedule a monitoring inspection, I'll come down and do with them. Although right now, they're not doing any inspections because of COVID-19, so I don't know when that's going to happen or if it's actually delayed that. But normally, those are the 2 processes. As far as they've actually approved all the expenditures for reimbursements, and they've accepted the job creation. So as far as there's nothing they can come back and ask for anything back for right now.
Any other questions? Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, Cody.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Jody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have the review of minutes for September 28th, our regular meeting, and our October 5th organizational meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes of September 28th, 2020.
And October 5th, or just?
I wasn't here for October 5th, so I can't.
Okay, so seconded by Jean, all in favor?
Sorry, first page, about 3/4 of the way down, the ayes. I'm included, but unless I'm reading this wrong, I don't think I was there to vote.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, but just with corrections. If we could approve it with corrections.
Okay, yep. I assume maybe there were some others. Were there any other pieces?
I did not.
No, I did not. Harry, well, I had, that's something. All right, we have one that McGuire had, all in favor?
Aye.
And now we need a motion for the October 5th minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 5th.
Moved by Cindy, seconded by Joe, all in favor?
I understand that was not the meeting.
And then I do have one addition for permits that Richard sent around this morning. I don't know if you saw it. For the Rotary Club.
This was all sent around earlier today via email, and now we're looking at the hard copy. Are there any questions on the request? No? Is there, may I have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
By Max, seconded by Joe, all in favor? Moving on to the zoning officials report that is in your packet. We also received online via email the minutes of the CBA meeting, the H Park meeting, and the planning board meeting this month. Did anyone have any questions on the report?
On the 194 Main Street, that obviously is where we're not right for consideration now with that. The applicability of our new zoning regulation is on the center in this. And so
Right.
I know we'll be coming back to it.
Yep. So there is a public hearing, I'm sure you've all read this, set for November 3rd at 5, with the zoning board of appeals pertaining to 194 Main Street. It's not just our, I guess to a degree it is our zoning law, but it also refers to our update of our transient rental law, et cetera, all those things. So I know I plan to be tuning into that. I purposely, there was a very good discussion in the zoning board minutes. So if you did get a chance to read those, you might want to review them before that November 3rd public hearing. Cindy?
I had a question that's really a question for Martin, and I'm sure one that the ZBA will ask, and that is the differentiation in this case between an area variance and a use variance.
Mhm.
And so it would appear from the minutes that what was determined was an area variance, which just seems a little unusual to me.
Area variance really is not just limited to side yards and backyard setbacks and the like. In fact, when we had the lawsuit with the Hubbles on the White Building, that was actually couched in terms of an area variance. It really deals with more, it's almost a misnomer to call them area variances, but there's just two terms, area or use, and if it's not a use, it falls under the area variance. And this is a residential use, so it really isn't, when you read the definitions of a use, it's still a use, it's just a kind of a subset of a use.
Any other questions on that? The other thing, and I spoke with our CEO, Jane Gentile, today on her other business. She kind of asked him here, you will see, about suspending the annual fee of $75 for the annual registration unless the property will be actively rented next year. And we had a good chat about that. My concern, at first it was almost going to be a blanket, The problem, if you remember, when they do this annual registration, there's two things, among others, that we require that most places would not have this year. And that's a fire inspection. The county actually did not do those because so many places, due to the pandemic, were not renting. The other is proof of bed tax payment, which, again, if they are renting, they don't have that. So there were some concerns because there is a need to always have an annual registration, particularly for grandfathered properties, because if they miss a year, then they kind of open the door to not be considered grandfathered anymore. So in discussion, we agreed that the best way might be to send a letter, and because I think there are quite a few who are renting next year. I've spoken to a few that said, we are renting this year, meaning 2020, but everybody rebooked for 21. So I do think there are going to be some rentals at least. Will they still pan out the whole year? We do not know. But I suggested that the letter go out and say, if you already know you're renting and want to secure your annual registration, which I think some of them are definitely going to want to secure, then please go ahead and pay the $75. If you do not plan to be operating this summer, next summer, please mail that back and confirm in writing that is the case. We feel the heads up on this will be that if they say that to us, but then they want to open and rent, they're going to need that fire inspection, and we would be alerted that they were opening. And basically, they will not do a fire inspection unless the county has confirmation they have registered with us.
How much of the $75 fee is associated with the fire inspection?
None of it. We don't do fire inspections.
Right, so I'm having a disconnect between charging the fee.
That was established. We have an annual fee of $75.
Right, but and we have that for the purpose of processing and maintaining records and so forth. So what is the purpose of foregoing it if we're still maintaining records, maintaining people's status? What's the thinking behind not charging? I'm not clear.
As I say, this was the zoning officer, and you can read everything she put in there. She felt that many people paid the $75 in 2020 and did not rent and did not utilize that. So essentially, they paid a fee and never utilized their registration. They never rented any of their facilities. So she received inquiries, I believe, can that be refunded? And we said, no, that can't be refunded. But the way going forward, since next year with the pandemic is still a bit of an unknown, rather than do that, if you've got bookings and you, for instance, are a grandfathered property and want to secure your annual registration, you can go ahead and pay the $75. If you're not sure you're going to open and book this year, then just notify Jane in writing and you don't have to pay the $75.
But they can at a later time if they choose to.
That's exactly right. If they find, whatever the circumstances, they would be able to rent and they want to be using it, then they would come back. But we'd have a record, she'd have a record.
But that's our protocol now.
That is what we discussed. She was only asking to suspend them totally, and I chatted with her because I didn't think that was necessarily the right direction.
And I'm looking at the wording of the law, whether or not we charge a fee, I think that's a separate issue. But I actually think anyone who wants to maintain their short-term rental status, grandfathered or otherwise, needs to register. Not just send an email that says we're not, but to maintain the way the law is written, they need to do that every year.
Okay, so do you feel that everybody, she should tell everybody?
They should register, and we can discuss whether we reduce the fee or waive the fee, but I think everybody needs to fill out that registration form. And it needs to be noted that fire inspectors.
They will be filling out the registration form. But if they say, I'm filling this out, but I will not be renting this year, they would pay a fee. That's what she said.
No, I think they should be paying a fee for the registration. I mean,
I'm fine. I didn't want it suspended, and I was trying to at least keep it in effect, because I do feel
people should be paying a fee. I mean,
the 7 grandfather would definitely have a problem.
Yeah, if they did register.
Yeah, so at least those 7 would have an issue.
So is there a reason that they can't register and then with the understanding that they may not rent again next summer, and if they choose to, then just pay the fee on the back end? Is there a reason behind why we couldn't do that?
Cindy's saying they have to pay or something.
I don't know if they have to pay.
Mhm.
I think the money is a separate issue. I think they have to register.
Yes,
Well, for bookkeeping, of course, yeah.
but I think they have to pay. I mean, I had to pay, I paid rented up something, and I didn't have an opportunity or the contract, not giving me the right to cancel it, and, you know, it was right, that's what a contract is. If I register my car, leave it in the driveway all year, and the Motor Vehicle Bureau, Department of Motor Vehicles does not say you can get a refund. If I'm an elderly person and keep my license, but never drive, you still have to fee. If they want to keep this and keep their grandfather status, and keep whatever status they have, they need to register and pay the registration fee, in my opinion.
And one more thing. I agree with all that. Plus, I think they should have fire inspections every year, whether they rent it or not. Or
it's not that's not on us, that's the county, and the county will not inspect if they don't have a registration.
But if they do have registration, then they'll inspect.
We don't know.
I asked specifically, I said, Shane, does this follow the back end? So they would show right now, for this registration, this month, or next month, when they do it, is 2020 bed tax payment, 2020 fire inspection payment. It's backward. So we would go ahead and do this now. Next year, they would have to show that they had it. Do you see what I'm saying?
So perhaps what needs to change, given what happens this summer, is that we accept for bed tax, for instance, 2020 or 2019. So that way they can turn in that piece of paper. You know, if they didn't rent it all in 2020, they're gonna have no proof of bed tax, because they didn't pay any bed tax, because they didn't have any rent.
She was basically, I believe, did you talk about that in here? Or was that verbal?
There's nothing, I didn't see anything about the bed tax, I only saw a little bit about the fire inspections.
She already noted the county codes did not do fire inspections this year. So she already assumed the 2 documents, because people didn't rent, the bed tax and the fire inspection certificate would not be submitted at this time.
I'm still having trouble grasping the basis for this. The idea of these rentals, it's a privilege, and there's a requirement to pay for the privilege. We have a pandemic that took us all by surprise, that had a big impact on people, yet we are not going to refund those payments that were made, and then the pandemic hit. But if I just don't see, I'm trying to understand how doing this prospectively now, well, maybe 2021 will be okay. If it is, then you'll pay us in arrears, basically. But I just associate the fee and the management of this with the management of this entire program. And unless there's a real demonstrated need for waiving the fee, I just don't see if we look at what we do with water and sewer problems. People had thousands of dollars because of COVID, they were away from the property, they didn't come out to inspect, and we don't forgive that.
No, I tell you that her proposal, if you read it, was I would like to suspend the annual fee. And I wanted it at least in place unless she had some sort of documentation and the people didn't feel. There they have a license for 3, don't forget, they register for 3 years. So this doesn't mean, other than the grandfathered ones that have to maintain them, this does not mean they would lose that. They could say, I'm not gonna rent this year at all, and come back, still have 1 more year on their 3-year, is it basically a registration, what do you call it, a 3-year license, on their 3-year license?
So the license then actually costs 3 times $75, because the $75 is paid every year, according to what is written.
That's the annual fee is 70, don't confuse the license then and the annual registration.
So,
If I go and set myself up as I don't know, as a short-term rental person, I have a house property, a room in my house. I'm authorized for 3 years. On top of that, annually, I would pay my $75 annual registration.
so I'll just make this last point. It just seems to me that we have a duty as a government to fund ourselves to carry out the functions that we legislate ourselves to carry out. And I don't see, as difficult as this time is, I don't see a justification. I didn't see anything from Jane sort of documenting a rationale for waiving the fees. I guess maybe it's because I don't understand enough about the basis for it, but the impact of $75 on the upside potential of renting seems to me important on the one hand to the village and de minimis to the property.
I have a question. If we do nothing, they have to register and pay the fee, correct? I make a motion that we drop this. The decision is to make no action. That's my motion, no action on this whatsoever.
I think Jane, in her report, is asking, I would like to suspend the annual fee. So this board needs to decide, we either say, no way, suspend it. Everybody who registers has to pay the fee.
But I just said we'll do that.
Oh,
If we
okay,
take
that's
no
your
action,
motion.
if we do no action, the fee stands. We have to do something active to change it. Otherwise, as I understand it, if we do nothing, the annual registration and the annual fee has to be paid, correct, Martin?
I would say that's quite true, although, it might make it easier for someone reading it in the minutes to have you say, we're gonna leave that, we have decided to leave the fee.
I think
It avoids a negative issue in the sense
No,
that,
I don't think we need a motion to say we decide to make a change.
But we do need to waive the fire inspection, because it's impossible to get the fire inspection right now. So what?
I say we don't waive it, I say we defer to the county. I say we word it so that the county, we require the fire inspection if the county will do it.
But they did, again, the fire inspection they would show now is for 2020 and the county
They don't
didn't
have
do
it.
it.
Okay, so I would waive the fire inspection for 2020 since they weren't done by the county. But I made it clear that that's the reason that we're waiving it. Do you want me to clear it?
No, I'm looking at Jim.
So, if we went along with what the Chamber said, at this point, I would like to have all existing properties continue to submit their registration, fine. But I would like to inform them that the fee and inspections are waived until they start renting again. I would like to add to that they cannot rent until the,
we don't have a motion on the floor, Jim, to do that. I think we just need a
Simple
simple motion.
Clear motion.
That's it.
I move that we do not waive the fee and registration. I do move that in 2020, we waive the fire inspection requirement since the county refused to do them in 2020. And that in order to rent in the future, they will need a fire inspection before they can rent again. That's my motion.
Second.
That's it, perfect.
That's
Second by Gene, any more discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
See, we did need a motion, Rich.
No, now it's clear. I mean, everybody.
I remember my list, restating the motion.
Voting no, nay.
Hey, I'm sorry, Terry, did you catch all that?
Yeah, I did.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so any other questions or comments on the zoning report?
No.
All right, police committee did not meet in October, so that's why we didn't have those minutes. We are moving on to treasurer's report and finance and personnel.
Well, with regard to finance, you have in your packet the wealth management statement. The finance committee completed the bank reconciliation review. You also have attached the wealth management statement, the sales tax revenues, and you can see, reading this correctly, for year to date, we're down 15%, 15.5%. From our sales tax revenues. There's also the portfolio statement, and if you flip to the end of that, you'll see that for the meters, we were down, we were 25% of the revenue from last year, and for the parking stickers, we were down, we were down, we were 23% of last year. But I think we cleared our revised budget amount by $2,000. We also have the overtime relief analyses. We have a material on the retirement benefit package, and we have a statement of our what's needed for workers' compensation contribution. Is that requiring a motion to?
You can for the retiree benefit package. You can see there's no change in premium. How many people are on that desk?
7 or 9?
Yeah, 7. It goes, you know, there's not very many people who get retiree health insurance, but it's like 7 people on it. You can see the premium's pretty low. So.
Right, so we don't, there's no action.
You can approve that, yes, for renewal.
I do move that we approve for renewal the retirement benefit package.
Second. Second by Richard, all in favor?
And then before I go to personnel, we have the auctions international information I'm going to pass around. 2 trolleys and a skid steer we had on there.
Need to accept the
These are, so what we're looking at are bids that were made for the equipment put up for auction. The 2 trolleys, 26,000 plus, and for the 99 skid steer, $8,500. I will move that we accept these bids for the surface property.
moved by Matt, seconded by, I'm sorry, moved by Joe, seconded by Matt. All in favor? Aye.
We have abstract and transfers in the package to approve, and I move it.
Second by Cindy. All in favor?
Aye.
Are we good with that? Here we go.
Yeah, are there any questions? Thank you, guys.
Since it's her birthday today.
I'm sure there's no other place to grab.
Don't light the candles when you get home. Thank you.
Okay, so wastewater treatment, construction is still continuing. Pay apps were submitted for processing, reviewed by finance, and will be sent on, for, payment, through the municipal solution. We didn't have anything else, did we, Mitch? No. Okay. DEP, work is substantially complete. We're still messing around with manifolds. So until those things are completed, we can't finish the project. We did have additional work here done in October, including trying to work on manifolds. A swine iron company, Dan Farrow was in on the 13th and 14th to work on the field work in the office here for the single federal audit that's required. As we had over 750,000 in one fiscal year. He conducted the data collection and sent some questions off to DOT as well as to Todd Harder, who was our construction observation person. He said he feels that everything is in compliance with that, so we're just waiting for his final report on it, but we had all the information that he needed, and DOT emailed back and verified on some things, so hopefully we should be all set with that. He was hoping to have the report by the end of October, early November. It's probably going to be more like early November, and he'll probably bring it in the same time he brings in fiscal year audit end for this year for 20. So those two should come in together. I have submitted requisition 14 for DOT for reimbursement. I think it was around $275,000. The only holdup on that, I didn't even get any little changes this time, which I was very happy about, is subcontractors have to acknowledge payment, and until they do that, they can't send it on to Albany for reimbursement. So hopefully that will get done fairly soon. And then there are going to be probably 1 or 2 more payment requisitions to close out that project. I also have been in discussions with dormitory authorities to move that $100,000 allocation that we had forward. He has sent me a form that needs to be completed to move it on to finance, and that will be the last step before getting the grant disbursement agreement. Doubleday Field, in your packet, there was an agreement with Delaware Engineering for a third phase building design bid award, limited construction phase services not to exceed $200,000, so that one will need action.
It was in your packet. Hopefully everyone had a chance to read and review it. This was mentioned at last month's meeting when we were looking at the value engineered building. Is there a motion?
So
Moved by Matt, second by Tim. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Okay. Grove Street Culvert Project may kill me before the week's over. I worked with DEC for the last 2 weeks and gone back and forth. Project budget is finalized, so we're good with that. The work plan review is being finalized. I've had to go back to Delaware to have them make adjustments so that all the details that DEC needs to have in that work plan and that our deliverables to the state on this project are included in the work plan. I think we're pretty much there, at least I hope so. So I'm going to send it back in tomorrow, and everybody keep their fingers crossed on that one. And then I'm going to keep Mitch in the loop on that one so that when I'm gone, he can keep track of that. So because once those things are uploaded and we have the master contract executed, then we should be ready to go to bid. But that's the only thing that's holding up going to bid and getting the master contract is the wording in the work plan. So hopefully we've got that worked out and see where we go with that. Okay, Wi-Fi project. Back in January, I had asked for an extension for the $50,000 for the incentive proposal that we received from ESC. Of course, we all know what happened in between then and now, and I haven't gotten an answer back. So I did email them back out, I think 2 weeks ago, and did get acknowledgement that they did provide the extension for that $50,000 Senate proposal.
And they had done it in January, just never let us know.
Yeah, like, when I asked, he said, I did that when you asked me to. I'm like, okay, my reading skills not so well. So in the meantime, an agreement has been executed between the village and the county IDA. There is an agreement that, the county IDA and Midtel, had to, come up with, and, county IDA is signed, and they're just waiting for Midtel's signature on that. The second part of that grant that is in that Wi-Fi project, is with dormitory authority. That is thankfully not the village's contract, but county IDA's, and I think that's like 250.
257.
So that one, should hopefully get that one going soon. So because, ESC is ready to go to agreement on that once the project has to be like started, basically completed, and then get reimbursement back from it.
Yeah, for those who may be listening, and actually for all of us, can you describe again the Wi-Fi project, what it produced for us?
Well, I think Ellen can better do that than I.
Okay.
The Wi-Fi project goes back into Jeff's administration. It probably goes back almost to the end of 2016. So and it never quite, we couldn't get it off the ground. You know, we have basically DASNY is funding the IDA, Empire State Development is funding us 50,000, but it's for the one project, which is Wi-Fi along Main Street. And this has been presented, actually that agreement that the IDA just signed between the village and the IDA, we all approved a year ago. I signed that last October and sent it off. And it's just, this has been, I don't know, circuitous trying to get this to fruition. It will basically pay for their little Wi-Fi boxes, which will be on the lamp posts. They'll blend in very nicely. But for almost, not quite a block, but on either side of Main Street, it'll be for businesses and our tourism industry, et cetera. There is going to be very good Wi-Fi along our Main Street in the Doubleday area and on up. So this has been a difficult process. I know Jeff worked on it for a while, and we thought we had it to a certain point, and when I came in, then suddenly the person handling it at DASNY retired, and all the emails went back, and it was handed to someone else, and it was literally like starting on ground zero. And because we aren't the grant recipient, DASNY really didn't work with us, so we had to work around it. That's just, let's say, it's been extremely difficult. So there were two agreements that had to be put in place. We finished ours last year. Just this month, we got it signed by IDA, so it's back. That one between IDA and Midtel went around and around, and we could only be slightly observers on it. We could contribute and try and help out, but it's between them, so I would just shoot off emails trying to keep them moving on the project. We're so excited. I can't tell you. This is literally like 4 years to get to this point, and this would be so great to finally get this Wi-Fi project on our Main Street for next summer.
Okay, and one thing that isn't on here, I had to draft, put together two resolutions so that we can get master contracts executed on two other contracts. One is the planning grant for the walking care at Lakefront. The other is the 22 Main Street revitalization project. Both of those are through Parks and Rec. So if we can get those approved tonight, I can send that along with the other documents they need the parks tomorrow.
Carrie, while those are going around, the other money for 22 Main is through Empire State Development.
Is the elevator, yeah.
Yeah, do we need an extension on that at this point? or
We
do
have an
want-
extension at this point. Yeah, no. That person's more is a better communicator.
Right.
And that's their model resolution. I just put Village of Cooperstown where it belongs and, name of the project and project number in there, so I didn't make it up.
Is there a motion? Let's do the one, Jean, I'll let you do the motion for the pier at Lakefront Park project. The first one,
I move that we
approve this.
approve this resolution for walking here at the end of Lakefront Park.
Second by Matt. All in favor? Aye. And then we have the resolution for the 22 Main Street, basically this skylight project.
Do you want to make a motion?
Oh, yes, I'd like to make a motion.
Made by Jim, seconded by Cindy, all in favor? Aye.
Okay, then I put information in regarding, a new law that's been put in place for the development of a pandemic operations plan. There is a webinar tomorrow, I will participate in that and leave some notes on it. But basically, this plan has to be in place by April 1st of 2021. It's similar to the, dates for the police reform. And before that time, it has to be submitted to the bargaining union. So, and I think that was somewhere around the end of January, beginning of February, those dates fall. So, and it tells you, basically we haven't received any other information on that other than what's in that flyer, but supposedly tomorrow's webinar will have some more information on that. So I'll leave that for packets for next month. And then I sent around a link to village official training. So if anybody wants to participate in that tomorrow, you just need to register for it on your computers. And if you want reimbursement for the fee, you can, submit it to the village.
So we should register and pay and submit it.
Yeah, then put it on a voucher to get reimbursed. It's probably the easiest way to do it. And that's it.
That's it. So as you heard Terry say, the balance of the TEP, which is nearly finished, is going to be handled by Mitch, as is the Grove Street project one with DEC. So some of these we have already spun off. We look at the two parks grants, the one for the historic preservation and the parks grants underway, so they are all in good shape. And we really thank you, Terry, for all your work on these grants and pulling together a lot of this and being able to so smoothly pass it on to Mitch.
Wow, sure how smoothly, it's slow going, I'll tell you that. It's not like something that turns around in 5 minutes, unfortunately.
All right, moving on, we have minutes from the Watershed Supervisory Committee for your review. We don't have to do anything with them. And then we move on to parks minutes. Does anybody have questions about them? No. Any questions, comments?
Move to accept.
By Richard, second by Jean, all in favor?
Aye.
One little, actually, we met up here, not downstairs.
Okay. We now are at new business, and we Cindy, have some information.
Yeah, so this is new old business. Because back in the spring, we put aside money through a purchase order to purchase a flagpole for the Fair Street entrance to this building to better mark it as a governmental building. And some people find that entrance to get to village offices. We've not yet followed through on that. There's been a lot going on. There's been a lot of talk about flags. So we'd like at this point to actually purchase the flagpole to go at the Fair Street entrance.
And can you remind everybody what the price is, et cetera?
A little over $2,000.
And it already, we had a purchase order, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is money that's is coming out of the previous year's budget that was already set aside.
And then, I'm sorry, where exactly is it going? Would it go?
Out at the Fair Street entrance, there's a sign on one side of the walk that says village offices, and I believe it's on the
It would go on the other side.
other side. So she moved, Richard, were you a second?
I'll second. I
Second,
did have a question, second time.
all right, so your question?
The question, seriously, half, or maybe half seriously, do we have a design for a flag for the village?
I have never, in anything I've looked at, seen any design.
Because if we're gonna put a flagpole that says this is the village offices, that actually might not be a bad idea. We can look into it on our own.
So the motion's been made and seconded. No questions? All in favor? All right, wow. This is moving right along. We do need to go to executive session for the work history of particular individuals.
Executive session.
Okay, we have to wait.
Yeah, second. But we'll wait because we have to turn on. Thank you, Vince. No. See?
So, that's, it is.
Yes, there is.
the basis is
Okay, well,
All right.
Are we back on? to it?
Yeah, so motion to come back.
Motion by Richard, second by Amy, all in favor? Okay. I move that we appoint Jen Utter as village clerk at a salary of 42,000.
46.
I'm sorry, 46,000, I have wrote it wrong, 46,000, and allow her the hours of 8:30 to 5.
It's
And
an
with
offer,
a start date to be determined.
and it's an offer and registrar of village, and vital statistics also.
And village.
So
Second by Matt, all in favor? I move that we hire Kathleen Caffery as deputy treasurer at a salary of 35,000, contingent upon county civil service approval of her qualifications.
second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And now, Terry, as you all know, we have scheduled next Sunday. I hope you can all be there on November 1st. I had to drag her a little bit. Once her foot gets out the door, she didn't want it to come back. But at 1 o'clock, we're going to kind of gather on the lawn. We're going to be able to socially distance. We're putting it out that way. Masks are required, et cetera. And our hope is that people will kind of filter through with remarks being made at 1:30. I've asked Jeff Katz, the former mayor, to come and make some comments. And please let me know so I can sort of schedule things if you also would like to have an opportunity at all. There will be some presentations, and we are also had an announcement in the paper, so if people are unable to make it on Sunday, they're hoping they'll also send a note, because Terry's very beloved, and it's going to be impossible to replace you, and we'll save a lot of our accolades for Sunday, but Terry, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with you.
All right, nothing else? Meeting adjourned.
Yes, finally.